Great skills again by him. Oh, marvellous goal by Lewis.
Welcome to the Rangers Journey.
Afternoon, everyone. It's Friday lunchtime news pod, and I'm here with Jack, Billy, and Facebook Rangers sensation Frankie. I'll come to you first, Frankie. Thank you for joining us today. How are you getting on?
Aye, all right. I've had a kind of lazy day. Thailand's cold. I was genuinely out at 10:30 this morning and had a hoodie on to go to 7-Eleven, and that's in the 22 years I've been here, I've never done that at that time of the day.
Fantastic. Jack, I'll come to you. How are you, mate? Are you all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Been hit with one of these colds. Frankie talking about needing to wear a hoodie. I think it's big jacket weather here. I didn't wear mine out, and I think I'm feeling the effects of it a few days later.
And Billy, thanks for joining again, mate. I don't think I've been on for a couple of weeks for yourself. Nice to see you.
Not for a while, yeah. Over here in snowy Sweden, and Jack, listening to Jack's taking me back to the old Lockets adverts. If there's one for the kids, just first class something to Nottingham, I think.
Fair enough, guys. Well, it's International Week, so usually news is scarce to come by, but actually this week I've done a wee list and I've got 10 points at least to cover. Frankie, let me start with you because you're our guest today. A couple of injuries away in international duty with John Souttar and Cornelius, so that affects their two kind of starting centre halves. Okay, we're playing Livingston at the weekend, but that's a big problem if they're out long term.
It will be, yeah, but Tav can play centre half, no bother. He's pretty reliable at centre half, and I know Max Aarons isn't the best, but it's Livingston, and let's be honest, we won't know until the press conference in a few hours what the long term is. But it was with what's his name coming off at Hampden before the kickoff. That's a worrying one, But and then we've got the big boy from Peterborough. What's his name? I can't mind his name. We paid £3.5 million for that. Maybe time for him to step up. Yeah, it is worrying, but that's the thing now. For all of people moan about loans and all that. Now is when these injuries come in. It's like, well, all right, well, maybe it's not that bad a thing,
Jack, I would say that I've not been particularly impressed with John Souttar this season, and to be honest, most of his time with us. When he played that last game with Hearts in the cup final, I thought he was outstanding. He was getting in front of everything, blocking every shot. Is he more that kind of player rather than someone that Rangers is going to have a lot of the ball?
Yeah, I think we've seen the best of John Souttar possibly in the Europa League last year. I think he's a very good siege defender. I think other than his first game against Celtic, he's always done quite well in Old Firms because you are defending more. I think when we're asking him to come out with the ball and be a bit more of a ball-playing defender, it doesn't really suit him. It reminds me a bit of Scales across the city, where great can hit the ball away, clear it, but when you ask him to play a bit of football, it's not his forte. I remember that cup final against Hearts. He was immense. I've seen him a few times with Hearts. I just think that injury he got when he first came to us, obviously didn't really play till the March. I think that might have just done it for him, being that top sort of Scottish defender. He just seems to have a wee error in him every so often, but his contract is up at the end of the season, and I think this will give us a chance to maybe see a bit more of the boy Fernandez. It's going to be easy just to stick Tav in there, but I'd like to see the gaffer do something different, either bring Fernandez in or Enciala back into the fold. Maybe even do John Sterling, who's back in training. I just want to see something a bit different, something with a bit of forward thinking.
Billy, staying on just for the moment. I feel in the game last week against Greece, he was kind of shown up as well for being a bit of a bomb scare at times. Obviously, sometimes he plays okay, but maybe it's to our benefit we're going to see him out the team. But again, as Frankie says, we don't have the press conferences yet. Kind of limitations of doing the 12 o'clock show on the Friday, I'm afraid. But when we get the news, I don't expect him to be able to start. I would like to see, Fernandez or Enciala have a wee run in the team. I don't know how you feel about it.
I think what you see with Souttar is the limitations in the squad and the problems we've had with recruitment, because I think there's an argument for saying that Souttar is one of our better defenders. He's still not good enough to be a Rangers title-winning defender. Since we lost Goldson and Helander, those were a level above anything we've had since. So I am a wee bit less. I'm a wee bit anxious seeing what happens with Suter out. I still don't think he's anywhere near good enough. I'm with you, Billy. I don't think he's ever really fulfilled what we hoped. When he came in, we'd heard he had the siege defender thing, but we also heard he was actually pretty good at like playing forward and distributing the ball. Started off okay, but we've never really seen that. You don't think of him that way. And Fernandes, we spent money on him, so you would hope there's a player in there, but we spent over twice as much on Shamiti, and he's hardly burning the heather at the moment. Nsiala is an interesting one to me. When we've seen him play, he looks like a modern defender. He's mobile. He can run. He can pass. He's got a shot. I just don't know if he can actually defend, because any time I've seen him playing, he's not the guy putting in the tackles or the blocks. He's usually passive or missing or not making the intervention. I'm not saying he can't be, but anytime I've seen him play, like all the other bits of the game, you're going, I can see why people fancy him as a player. I just don't know if he can defend, which, as a defender, I think that's quite high up in the job spec. So no Suter in the team gives me concerns. That's not because I think he's a fantastic defender. I just think there might be a step down, but maybe Fernandes gets a run in the side, and it turns out we've actually got a player in our hands. Presumably, is Giga available as well? I'm presuming he's.
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Giga is such an odd player to me. When he came into the team, I actually thought we'd kind of want to watch. I thought he looked composed. I thought he had all the athleticism. He looked confident, and that confidence leached away. And there's a wee bit of me hopes maybe that the confidence thing might have been working under Russell Martin, because he hasn't looked much of a player since then. But this is what elite sports is about. A player gets injured, someone's got their opportunity. If the guys there should be champing at the bit to come in and show that they should take over. And if you're looking at John Suter's performance, you should actually back yourself to get in the team and stay in it, I think.
Frankie, Derek Cornelius for me has looked okay. And none of the defence have been, spectacular or fantastic. I'm not going to lie about it, but for me, Derek Cornelius is the bigger miss for us. What about yourself?
Absolutely, and I would try and sign him in the summer as well. I think there's a leader there, and he can play a bit of football as well. We've seen he can dribble, he can go past. I'm not saying he's a Beckenbauer or Bobby Moore, but there's a football player in there. There's a goal, and he can ping free kicks as well. We saw that, I think, and when you see him talking on the telly and all that, there's just a natural leader there. That he could be potential captain material. Because we all know, I'm sure you're going to come on to Tav, but it's Tav's last season. I would keep Tav for one more season, but as a squad player and there for the handover period that's going on. But I like the big man. I would try and sign him, but I know he will be a miss. We'll see that. Actually, a game against Dundee, there was something, and I remember I was lying on the couch watching it. It was 43rd minute. The ball was at the camera side, and somebody there was a throw and threw it to him, and it was a stupid throw. And all he did was, he was surrounded with the D players, and all he did was toe poke it right up the park. And I liked seeing that. There was nothing fancy about it. There was no hairs and graces. He knew, just get it to F. And he did that. And nobody really mentioned it in the commentary, but it was one of those little things. That's the kind of stupid things I noticed. I liked that. There was he knew we were in trouble, so he didn't try anything fancy. He just wellied it. And let's get shape back at the back line.
Frankie, I'll stay with you because you mentioned Tav. I wasn't actually going to bring him up, but you've mentioned something that's kind of piqued my interest in your opinion on. It seems like we've been trying to get that handover season for Tav for a couple of years now, and it's never really worked. My worry if he stays around is he ends up still being the better option, the more consistent option, which in itself says something about him. He's still a good player, but I wouldn't be thinking about extending it. But what's your reasoning for extending him on again?
Well, number one, he knows the club inside out. He's never injured. I'm not saying I'm on about him stepping down as a squad player on the bench. Let somebody else take over the captain, because what people may or may not know, I'm sure you know, see the stuff he does as a captain off the pitch. Like he'd lung Mikey Moore up at his house for a meal, and they watch Monday Night Football. There's things like that. It helps the young team integrate into Glasgow itself, and you've got to remember he is we all know he's a Leeds fan, but his kids have grown up here. They're Glaswegian. It's just that he knows the club. Danny Rowe will offer him another contract, I've got no doubt about it, as a squad player. And Tab will be quite happy for that. And from what I understand, he's got his tickets as well. Because I think a few years ago, when we had a European game, he was actually our ticket guy. For, you've got to have a coach or something like that to have the UEFA license. And I may be wrong here, but I seem to remember he was that guy. So and he might end up coaching the under 18s or something like that. But I would have him one more year for that. Just he knows the club. He's been near 10 years to help the manager.
Jack, I'll come to you because there was also returns from injury in this week's training photos. So good news, Dujon Sterling, it looks to be back. But I think we also have Rabbi Matondo and Kieran Dowell back in training as well. So I don't want to be nasty about them, but they're not certainly fans' favourites.
Yeah, Dujon is a great option to have back. Like Frankie said, we need to start, moving Tav sort of down a bit, and having Dujon back gives us the opportunity to sort of rotate there, because Max Aaron's obviously on his loan hasn't impressed at all. So delighted to see Dujon back because he can fill in so many places. You get a guy who can play centre mid, on the wings, full back, centre back. Is a guy, no matter where you've got an issue, he's more than capable of filling in. Kieran Dowell, I don't know what Russell Martin was thinking. He's never bad, but he just doesn't get involved. It's like as if you would put maybe me or you out there. Like, we just can't get involved in play. It just doesn't look like a professional player. It's not as if he's getting on the ball and giving it away a lot. It's just it doesn't do anything. And I think we'll probably be looking to loan him out again in January to the end of his deal. Matondo, we're stuck with his wage. It's their own fault for paying it, but no one else is going to give him that sort of wage. Maybe in January we'll get a loan deal. Somebody will cover a bit of it, but I don't know if maybe you're just kind of worth keeping him about. He's quite good if maybe you're chasing a game late on, a bit of pace. But again, when teams sit deep, his only real attribute is that pace, running in behind people. And when you've got a packed defence, he's not able to do that. So, it's good to see Dujon back. The other two, as much as I'd love them to have an impact, there's no evidence to say they're going to give us it.
Billy, on those three, me, Kieran Dowell, it's his body language for me. He just looks completely disinterested. On top of that, he doesn't really give us anything. But on Rabbi Matondo's side now, I think Ross Wilson recently joined Newcastle as their, I don't know, sporting director or whatever, the recruitment side. That's one of the signings that, and in fact, I think he was in some list of being one of the top whatever director of footballs in the last wee while for how much money he's made back in signings, which is great. But this is one that's definitely not worked in Rabbi Matondo. But I would say I don't think his attribute is just speed merchant. He got those two finishes last season against Hibs and Celtic, the game after each other, top corner finishes. He can do that as well.
He can, but if you were coming up with three words to sum up Rabbi Matondo, the first might be speed, the final one might be finishing, the middle one would just be injuries. He's just you might want him off the bench, but it's kind of like almost like a Kemar Roof situation where you go, right, throw him on for the last 15 minutes, he'll get us a goal, he'll be injured for 6 weeks. And if he's not injured in the game he comes back in, he'll be injured in the next two games. No harm to the guy. You have players who they get to a certain level in football and their bodies just can't write the checks anymore. And I'm not portending doom with the likes of like Ben Gannon Doak, but you see some of these players when they get to a certain level, they need to find a way to manage their body, whether it's hamstring injuries or whatever it happens to be. Ryan Giggs went through a phase where he had a lot of hamstring injuries, but he spent a lot of time researching it, and they reckon at the end it was actually the seat position in his car. So I don't know if Rabbi Matondo is doing the research or is just doing his best, and it's got to be frustrating for the player. You've got to realise a little bit like Kemar Roof eventually that you're actually a tough you're a tough sale in terms of your agent trying to get you another gig. But Ross Wilson's a curio though. Like, he's a very smart operator. He seems to know when to jump. I don't know. Like, I wasn't enamoured with his time at Rangers, but I do wonder sometimes how much we know the story. Was he the problem, or was it the directions he was getting from the board? Was he buying bad players or not selling at peak value, or was he saying to the board, we should sell this player now, and they were going, no, we're holding on to this guy for a tilt to Europe next season? So he seems well regarded in the game, but yeah, Rabbi Matondo is not one. I imagine when he's applying for jobs, that's not on his CV.
Frankie, moving on to other news, we appointed a set-piece coach this week, Scott Fry. By all accounts, and if you watch the Danny Rose video talking about that position, he's very well thought of. He's, although he does have some connections to Thelwell, it's not like he's just done this, been brought in as a kind of buddy friend under the table stuff. He's actually got the stats behind him to show that he's good at his job. We've severely been lacking not only in scoring from set pieces, but also defending set pieces. So how hopeful are you that we improve with him?
Big time, because we've not been good at corners for 20 years. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, we were through our fades, when we were taking corners, I was checking my betting, my coupon. You know what I mean? Because I knew the ball wasn't getting anywhere near it. But it's not, and it was your stat guy. Was it the Lincoln? 64 goals, 30 of them came from set pieces, and they only lost 3 goals from corners. And another thing I really liked was the manager said he was involved in interviewing 3 or 4 people for the job, and he got the final say on the guy. And that pleased me from a bigger picture. Obviously, we know the issues with Thelwell. People think that he is all him, but I liked that. Was something that I was impressed with. And Germans, right? Germans don't get much wrong in life. When it comes to, as a mechanical engineer, if I get a bit of kit that's German, I know I'm not touching it for the next 10 years. I mean, to put it in maybe being a bit left field here, but I'm quite looking forward to it. And I tell you what, I bet we see a difference on Saturday.
Fair enough. Jack, on the set pieces, if you could take out James Tavernier's contribution to set piece goals, I think you would find we must be one of the worst in the country.
Yeah, it's really bad. Even as good as Tav was at scoring sort of free kicks for a long time, how many times have we seen him take a corner that's hit the first man? Like, it's my biggest bugbear when they just hit the first man. We just don't get enough.
Is he gone? Jack did tell us before he started he was having some issues with his internet. What will they do?
See the thing about the first man though. You ask any coach, that's the one you want. Most clubs that see if you beat that first man with a corner, the percentage of the percentage of goals that will go in is massive. That is the guy to beat. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it was a stats guy that told me that. No, that's on. They try and beat him on purpose. That is the line that you want that corner to come into most of the time. But obviously, it's hard to beat that first man. Like we did it when Thingy scored the other day against Dundee. What's his name? The wee man Raskin. That's what happens. But yeah, let's say it'll be interesting to see what the chap's name, Scotty Fry does with us. I'm really looking forward to that.
Billy, I do wonder if there's any things that he's noticed before he's joined that he's instantly going to change. Maybe that front post, the Rebo type thing, the Raskin type thing of winning that ball kind of towards the front post, either knocking it on or getting a goal from it. But we haven't done that consistently.
I mean, possibly, just briefly so I know we have a guest on, but just to pick up on Frankie's point that the Germans don't get much wrong in life. I've got a German friend I love dearly, But I think historically they've got a few blots in the copybook, and I'm not talking about the Volkswagen data scandal. So, but moving right along, in terms of like a coach coming in to look at set pieces, I think you would love coming to this job if you're Scott Fry, because it's like if you take over at a club, in a lot of ways, the best time to take over is when you can make an improvement, when you're actually starting in quite a low position. And I would absolutely agree with Frankie. Rangers have been kind of a disgrace at corners and set pieces for years. It's almost like we're Rangers, we're the big club, we're expected to win. We will score through sheer excellence and force of will. And I think that's a sort of a complacency that you just can't afford in the modern game. You need to eke out every marginal advantage, and set pieces. I mean, it was the standing joke as we were working through the league, that we had one free kick, which was basically roll the ball and and we'd have a shot. And that I thought that was unprofessional, to be honest. And I felt that a lot down the years where we should be the ones like coming up with inventive routines. We should be the ones, when you see like Raskin, I mean, like someone like Barry, presumably, I think Billy Dodds takes the credit for this, but Billy Dodds takes the credit for most things if you listen to him. And he was the one that said, like they identified Raskin could do this sort of front post thing. Suddenly we're getting goals from it. I think it just makes so much sense to have a guy whose job is just to look at the team, just to look at the opposition, how we set up, what can we do in any given match situation to create a couple of chances. Because this throwing the ball in and 3% of corners result in goals, but with Rangers at one point it was less than 1%. It's unacceptable at a professional football club. And I think Frankie's right in that Danny Rule, German guys come in and went, you don't have a set piece specialist. Why? And I still think Danny Rule's a massive risk, but credit to the guy. He's come into a difficult situation and he's putting the obvious pieces in place. And I'm quite excited, actually, because I think we're such a sludgy non-entity at set pieces that actually seeing what difference a professional makes, I'm quite excited about that, yeah.
Jack, welcome back, mate. You did cut off kind of close to the beginning of when you started talking, so feel free to repeat what you were saying.
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the middle of changing Wi-Fi providers, so it's a bit up and down. Hopefully got it sorted out. I was just saying, as much as Tav and previously Borna were scoring free kicks, corners have been an issue for years. How many times did we just swing them in and the first man clears them away? It's ridiculous for like a professional player, because Tavernier taking an actual cross usually gets them quite deep, and then with a corner it's the first man, and it's not even like we're aiming for Raskin because it gets nowhere near him. Another thing that's kind of going under the radar is this is going to help us with defending them, because we have been so susceptible to free kicks and corners for years, and everyone talks about how good this boy Fry is setting up attacking ones. I think we'll really see the benefit defensively, because how many balls in the box just ricochet about. You've seen it at Roma, you've seen it against Celtic. Just get the ball away, we'll set up better, and that's what I'm most looking forward to with the new set piece coach.
Frank, let me come to you on set pieces. You've been watching Rangers a long time. Who's your favourite set piece taker you've seen?
Oh, I hate these questions. There was Alberts, there was David Cooper. Who else could pick them? Probably Coop. Because I remember there was a game. It was a Tuesday night, pouring rain, pre-Souness. I think it is actually on YouTube. It was the League Cup was home and away. We get gubbed 2-0 through an Easter Road. Only 1-1 at Ibrox, and David Cooper hit this free kick, and it was unbelievable. It was better than the Aberdeen one at Hampden. The one where Jim Blayton, Cooper said the first time you saw the ball when it was coming back out. It is on YouTube actually. But and it was also a Glasgow Cup final before back in the day, because the Glasgow Cup final, Ibrox or Parkhead was full. I'm sure Billy J will remember that. It was the end of the season, whatever it was. And who was it that took it? It was, I think it was Cooper as well. There was this 30-yard bender, you know what I mean? And it was because the old trick back then was it was hitting the valve, wasn't it? That's when you see them lining up the free kick. You would see them chugging a bit. You're like, what are you doing that for? But so if they hit the valve and the old Mater dealt a certain way, it would spin away like. But Albert's,
knew
man,
that.
imagine being in the wall with Albert's. I know that's it. Google it on YouTube. That's the valve. That's how Beckham did it. It was hitting the valve. You know, that's why they do that. But yeah, there was Charlie Adam. The gentleman said here in the comments, Charlie Adam could have a free kick. But Cooper, David Cooper, man, was aye.
Jack,
I mean, Taff can't ping them. Let's be honest.
No, he does have a good record. Jack, I'll come to you on a similar subject. I'm going to say my favourite one, and you may be too young to remember it, but it was Van Bronckhorst against Galatasaray, and it was an absolute screamer. Anyway, what's your favourite set piece taker the last wee while?
Well, I'm like I said, I've not been fortunate enough to see Van Bronckhorst was just right before when I started going. I went first season I started going was X final year, when we finished third. So it'd probably be starting off. Charlie Adam was the first days. I'm trying to think under Walter's second spell who was taking the free kicks. I mean, Chris Boyd used to just strike them and try and bury it through the wall. I remember when we were in the lower leagues, McCulloch would do the same. Stevie Smith scored a couple, which I said sarcastically in the comments, but it probably would be Tav or Borna, just for the sheer amount of time. I think Charlie Adams' percentages are probably better, but I've seen Tav score some absolute belters.
Mm-hmm.
Billy, do you remember the Galatasaray one?
I do, but I've got to be honest. Like Stevie Smith was out of left field there when we were. I mean, he did actually. Once you mention it, Jack, you go, yeah, he did actually take a couple of cracking free kicks, but I didn't see him dropping into Gio and Alberts and Cooper there. I mean, Gio, like fantastic player, but I'm kind of with Frankie in this. Like for power, you're talking Alberts, and I know that the cliche is a wand of your left foot. Davy Cooper's really was a wand, just in terms of like being able to deliver a ball or produce those unbelievable, for quite a slight guy, the power he got. Alberts looked like a machine. Like Davy Cooper, it was astonishing. And for me, in terms of power and artistry, I can't see beyond him. I'm sorry, he's just ahead of Stevie Smith there, Jack.
Fair enough.
But I remember, I think we get gubbed something. We get gubbed off Celtic 3-1, and the one goal was a free kick by Van Bronckhorst, and it was an absolute round the corner one as well. But it was like I'm pretty sure it was late on in the game. It was one of them. Nobody really bothered. In fact, I think it was even in a beam back to Ibrox. I seem to remember sitting in the Broadman rear, and he scored it. It was one of them.
Was it the 5-1?
Because the game didn't matter. What was it? Was it that? Aye, it was certainly across the room at Fraggle Rock. So yeah.
Frankie, we'll move on to a slightly different subject. Still talking about coaches. This much talked about Scottish coach. Apparently, we're very close to making this appointment as well. I do wonder though if we're all looking for different names and the name's actually there already, and it's going to be Stevie Smith.
I would have Fergie, Duncan Ferguson. I would have Duncan Ferguson in there. He's doing the rounds. But what a lot of people don't realise, Duncan Ferguson, for all he grew up a Rangers fan, I don't want to say he's bitter against us now, but I think he lost a lot of the love for the Rangers because of what happened and how adored he was at Everton. But I would have him there because have you seen him doing the rounds and all that for his book deal? He's brilliant, chap. There was a point I thought, is he too big a presence because that's a big lumpy man and he's got an opinion. But apparently, I've not seen this myself, but when it was hands across the water the other night, the guy said, no, he said, look, he's calmed down, he wants to be a coach. I would have him, but if I had a choice, it would be Neil McCann. For the choice, it would be Duncan Ferguson, but I think it would be Neil McCann.
Fair enough. Jack, come to you on the same kind of subject. The names we're hearing, I fancy Kevin Thompson for it. Maybe biased because I've interviewed him a couple of times, but you've got Stevie Smith I mentioned. You've got Billy Dodds actually as well, I believe, mentioned in it. But my feeling is that I maybe would like a name outside this. I don't know if there's any. I mean, Frankie's saying Duncan Ferguson. Actually, if you live in Stirling, you know Duncan Ferguson's house is right on the main road, and his dad had a Jag, I think, with Fergie. I think seen his mum and dad the other day. They were driving down. So yeah, Stirling guy. Grew up a Rangers fan. That is out of left field, and actually, I quite like it.
Yeah, I do like it, but I'm not sure on it because as good as he did during the sort of interim spell at Everton, he's been quite poor, and his past two jobs. Inverness fans are not fans at all, and obviously took Forest Green. His record there was very poor, but of course, being a manager is very different from being a coach, as we've seen with Michael Beale. I would like something like a left field. I think if you remember, Pedro brought in Jonathan Johansson. There's been all this talk about it being sort of a Scottish guy. I think we can maybe see someone with a bit of experience in the league. But if I had to pick, being at the sort of age I can't see past Stephen Davis.
Oh, yeah, that's actually a name I forgot about. Billy, have you seen any other names other than these ones that are kind of always mentioned when it comes to, even if it comes to being interim manager, these names seem to be the same ones that come up?
I mean, I've had I don't know if it's left field, but my take on this has been slightly different. And to start off, I'm very much in the ABD camp.
That is not a surprise, Billy.
Anyone but Dodds, like I would never have admitted Dodds. Never have had him back at Rangers. I heard him on Radio Scotland one time being ribbed about being a Rangers fan and going, "I'm no Rangers fan," with too much feeling for my liking. Since he's left the club, he's talked down the value of players like Igaman. He's divulged all the dressing room secrets, and he's talked repeatedly about all the improvements he made and how he did this and how he did that. I wouldn't have him anywhere near the club, but that's a personal preference based on facts and the truth. So you can do it that way, what you like. I've always thought, since this came up, I mean, I know Stevie Smith's now been talked very positively by Danny Rule, so there is the sense that maybe that's foreshadowing him coming in. I don't know why we aren't been a bit more ambitious. I don't know why we're not going for someone like a Stuart Kettlewell. Someone who is a first. I've heard people saying, why would they give up like first team coach at Kilmarnock? It's Kilmarnock and we're Rangers. And if I was Stuart Kettlewell, someone who I think is well regarded, who's shown he can do well, he's had patches where he hasn't done so well, but that's often where you learn most as a manager. He is, by all accounts, a bear. And if you're a Stuart Kettlewell looking at Danny Rule, if Danny Rule is successful, he'll be gone in 3 years. If he's unsuccessful, he'll probably be gone in 2 years. And if he's successful and Kettlewell's part of that, why don't you look at what Walter Smith did? I'm not comparing the two. Walter Smith had he had been assistant manager to Jim McLean and had been robbed of a European Cup final by some atrocious decisions. But you had a guy who wasn't just an assistant, he was more than an assistant. And if I was a Stuart Kettlewell, I would look at, one step back to potentially go a lot of steps forward in 3 or 4 years if you're part of a successful team. And I love the passion and the commitment of guys like KT, but I would like someone with more experience, more high-level front-facing experience. So for me, someone like a Stuart Kettlewell should be asked, but we don't seem to be thinking that way. We seem to be going down the route of, I mean, I'll be honest, the names that are coming up are they've got heritage and they might turn out to be great coaches. Stephen Davis seems like a very smart, very motivated, very disciplined guy, but he hasn't got that much coaching experience yet, which is why I would look at someone like a Kettlewell. So I don't know if that qualifies as left field. To me, it's common sense, but the Rangers don't seem to be looking down that avenue.
Here's one that's just came in my head, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. He's from Troon. He was the right back, and he went to Aston Villa. He does a punditry now. What's his name again?
Hutton.
You know what I mean?
Alan Hutton.
I mean, he's born in the state. That just came into my head out of nowhere. You know what I mean? And I don't think I'm going to assume he's done his badges. I mean, I'm just throwing it in there as a kind of, because I don't think whoever comes in as the Scottish coach, it will not be a surprise. I don't think it will be a surprise.
Alan Hutton's one. I mean, I think he's probably down the line of punditry now, making a decent living off doing that. I mean, he was on the TV during the week. Used to bump into him all the time in Woolworths and Saltcoats when I worked there. So met him a couple of times myself. Nice guy. let's move on. I'd be remiss, Frankie, not to mention that Scotland did qualify for the World Cup. What's your interest in the Scottish national team? Did you watch the games?
I started at 2:45 in the morning here, and I woke up Southeast Asia when all the goals were in. You know what I mean? I used to be of the growing up. I'm sure Billy J will say 70% of Hampden was Rangers fans, and we all loved it. Then there was the issues. Then I had a reset button a few years ago. Said, listen, I'm British. I serve my country. I serve next to Scottish people. That's my football team. That's my national team. I don't particularly like the manager, but at the end of the day, that's our country. You know what I mean? So I'm back there. I'm over the moon they qualified because see they've lifted the country again. See the build up to the World Cup. See the pubs and all that. It'll be absolutely brilliant, man. You know, and those goals, man. See those goals the other night. That game, Steven Spielberg couldn't have written that. An overhead kick. You know what I mean? To two each. Shanklin's goal, then the last two goals. That is honestly, that's a Netflix movie. You can't write that. You know, and it was brilliant. And I'm pleased. I know that I do get why Rangers fans don't like them, and that's fine. But no, I'm not letting certain tubes within the Sarton Army and the manager stop me supporting my nation.
I don't know. But Billy, Frankie's been picking on you a few times. I think I might even be older than you, so he's maybe thinking you're the old one of the pod. But
I don't know what camera you're looking at. I look about 20 years older than you, Billy. So like, without going into details, I think he's carbon dating us fairly accurately at the moment.
I don't know. We'll need to go after the pod.
Well, I'm 51.
Billy, I'll stay with you. What's your take on the Scotland? I mean, you can't say it's not a momentous thing for the country, at least. But Rangers fans, obviously, a difficult relationship with the national team the last wee while.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Frankie said there, because like I'm less excited about the national team these days for various reasons. The recent history with you know what the SFA did and an element of the fan base that just seemed to be very anti-Rangers. Also, I mean, let's not discount what years of having the optimism and hope kicked out of you does as well. So following Scotland, I think eventually you have to protect yourself from the trauma. So your mind and body shuts down and goes, it's Scotland. No, we'll find a way to mess it up somehow. However, I do think... I think it's a personal choice. Some people don't get excited about international football. Some people love it. But I do think I think Rangers fans are a big part of Scottish culture, a big part of Scottish life, and it is our national team. And I think if we allow ourselves to be excluded and othered out of the national team, whether it's by an SFA administration that's clearly not very favourable towards us, or by fans trying to be toxic towards us, we are ceding the ground there. We're actually stepping aside and we're going to be excluded, and we shouldn't be excluded. So I think Rangers fans who want to support the national team should absolutely go for it. And again, I would echo what Frankie said. I have no time for Steve Clarke as a human being. Don't like him based on like various things, you know, the whole way around the Chris Boyd getting abuse. But, you know, he could hear 50 fans chanting at him, but he couldn't hear 6,000 people chanting at Chris Boyd. The frankly embarrassing racist rant at an Argentinian referee that the Scottish media didn't go to town on. But like, I looked back at that recently and it is breathtaking. People have been cancelled for stuff like that. I'm not saying he should be, but I'm just saying in the world we live in, he got off pretty lightly. But I do think it's like, why shouldn't Rangers fans who support the national team share in that joy? Like, we put money into the Scottish game that supports like your youth development and players that are in the team, and Billy Gilmore, for example. So I think I'm trying to get my enthusiasm on for this. Like I say, I've been hurt too many times following the Scottish national team to really get overexcited. But it was a phenomenal, say a game. Scotland were appalling in general play, but the drama and the goals were absolutely fantastic. And I am coming round to so much in the world has gone wrong in recent times. This is going into a right sidebar. There's a documentary guy called Adam Curtis who basically says, you know, about 30, 40 years ago, the cultural element society withdrew from politics and left it to, not very nice people. And I think there's a danger that Rangers fans, if we decide to just withdraw from the national side and support the national side, we might be cutting our nose off to spite our face. It's our right as much as anyone else. And quite frankly, if you have more Rangers fans in the Tartan Army, you have a lower Dobber quotient in the National Army as well, actually the Tartan Army as well. We become a more balanced support, let's put it that way. And I understand, because we've all seen like how Rangers players get picked on and what the Tartan Army have this lovely reputation. Look what they did to Gary McAllister. You know, they should hang their heads in shame for some of that treatment. But that's why we need to be there, bringing balance and reason. And if Rangers fans want to support the national team, I say absolutely go for it.
Jack, for me, I'll just let you reply to what I was going to say. It's not my kind of disengagement from watching Scotland, and what to do is I like watching Scotland when they've got Rangers players in the team, and there just seems to be, you know, less and less. When I was growing up, you had a lot more Rangers players, so there was a reason to watch it, because I really just cared about Rangers. But I mean, I think it is good. It's going to be as Frankie was saying, a good kind of good feeling leading up towards it. Loads of folk will probably go over to Canada, America, Mexico, get a holiday out of it as well. It was a really dramatic game, even if you didn't follow Scotland. That's still an exciting finish to a game. A referee finding 2 more minutes for some reason in the last extra time, but Scotland still getting a goal for their own half. I mean, it was an exciting game.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I'd probably echo that with the Rangers players thing. When I was a lot younger, I was really into Scotland. We'd go to Hampden, my dad. Then maybe around 2013, 14 sort of era, it just seemed to be all Celtic players in the lineup under Strachan. I mean, I'd still go and watch them, but it would just kind of be a bit off-putting. And we didn't really have them. They deserve to be on the squad then, so it's not that. It was the Lee Griffiths sort of era that put me off Scotland really badly. I just couldn't get myself to support them. I have got into a bit more in the last few years. I would not go as far to say I'm a supporter. I'm definitely a fan of Scotland. I want them to win. I'm not one of these guys that actually want them to lose or support a different national team. I want Scotland to win. But the last time I went to Hampden, we played a friendly with Republic Island a few years ago. In the pub beforehand, I started getting, abuse for a phone background. So I'm happy to go out with my mates, watching the local, but I'm not really actively going to go to Hampden or follow Scotland. But I still, like I said, want to win. And I watched the game the other night, and it was what a finish. I mean, I've honestly, how many times do you tell him to take it in the corner, and then Kenny McLean finally looks like he's breaking up to get free and just does that. And the best part of it for me was watching Big Schmeichel try to run back to his goal after going way out and not being able to. Exactly what Frankie's doing just now. Just absolutely unable to get himself back.
Do you know something, gentlemen? I know you want to move on from this. I'll bet you if you took a poll, it's still more Rangers fans that are at Scotland game than anyone else. And it has been all this time. I bet you if there was a poll, because see the people that boo Rangers fans, it was the whole stadium. And it was one of the ones was at Pittodrie as well, when they just signed Ryan Jack. I'm not defending the Tartan Army. I know there's hand pumps amongst them, but I bet you, I'm guessing the vast majority, the biggest football fans that support Scotland at Hampden will have been Rangers fans. I bet you.
Well, I'm going to move on, Frankie. I just wanted to mention it because it was something that happened in Scotland this week. But the real football is back. The real football is back tomorrow as we take on Livingston. We've mentioned a few things get this out regarding the defence. My worry is still up front. Chimiti, Danilo, Miovski. Danilo's actually probably had the better of the season so far. Who do you think starts tomorrow, and what are you hoping to see?
I still think Chimiti will start. You know what I mean? I still, it's one of them. I think Rangers are still, it's nothing to do with he's got to play. It's like there's a goal. You just feel there's a goal going to come. Then the floodgates will open. But we did think that already when he scored that goal not the other week. Was it 3 weeks ago? Because there's nobody knows more how badly they're playing than that kid. You know what I mean? Because they focused on him at Dundee. I remember the day the camera went on, and the sweat was pouring down, and you could see the pressure, the whole pressure of the world was on that boy's shoulders, and I felt sorry for him. You know, but the luckiest thing, we're still scoring goals from elsewhere, thankfully. If our 2 strikers can start scoring goals, 3 strikers can start scoring goals, somebody's getting a doing.
Jack, we have had obviously a few players away in international duty, so Danny Rowe couldn't have, worked his philosophy into the team as much as he would want to with a proper pre-season. But I do hope that he's done enough with the players that were there. What are you hoping to see improvement-wise with across the board tomorrow?
A win, a comfortable win. I'm not expecting, like Alan said, maybe a statement 6-0. I just don't think we're there yet. But if we can get out there 2-0, 3-0, 2 goals in the first half, and then just ease our way through it. That's something we've not been able to do for the last few years. I'd be more than happy with that. Just get through it without any injuries, without any drama. Have it done for half time. Get some subs on, get some guys minutes, and get the 3 points up the road. Livingston are down the bottom of the league for a reason. Let's just do what Rangers should be doing and swat them aside and get on a continuous sort of league run and head towards Tynecastle in the middle of December.
Well, we do have pre and post match pods tomorrow, so we'll bring you the team news before it, and also mention the post match. We'll go over not in great detail, just more to do with the kind of initial reaction to the result after that, and hopefully it's a good one. Billy, how important do you think this week has been for Danny Rowe just to get to this point, this international break, so he could take stock of where he's at and what he's got?
I think it'll be important in terms of getting things done around the club, like, maybe interviews for his Scottish member of staff, whether that's Stevie Smith or anyone else. I'm a wee bit less optimistic about necessarily the impact on the pitch, because Livingston are down the bottom of the table and should be easy enough to deal with, but they won't have had many players away. They'll have been training for a couple of weeks together, so potentially rested, potentially well drilled for this game. Whereas we have the likes that we've got Chermiti and Raskin and Bayrami and Miovski. A lot of our first teamers are not actually going to be around. They're going to get back. Having played a couple of games, having travelled. Okay, we say they're well paid and everything, but they're still potentially going to be quite jaded, and they're not going to have necessarily, even if Rule's been working on shape while they're all away, it won't be with the first teamers in the team. So I'm hoping that Jack's right and we swat Livy aside, but I'm prepared for it to be a bit of a grind while the players feel their way back in and try and break Livy down. I think, to answer your question, Billy, which will be a novelty for me because I do tend to kind of take the side road sometimes, but to answer your question, I think it's more likely he'll have been doing not admin, but like structural things. He'll have been looking around. He'll have been the fact that he's actually said how impressed he's been by Stevie Smith. That is good management. Either he's going to give Stevie Smith the job, or if he's not giving Stevie Smith the job, he's giving him a confidence boost. He's doing good management things. And I would imagine he's, as well as training the team, he's having a right good look around. So I'm hopeful we see a decent performance at the weekend. I'm not super optimistic it'll be a quantum leap, but I think he'll have been doing more work behind the scenes and seeing things like the appointment of Fry as a set piece guy. These are the things that I'm not writing this season off, not with a Celtic team that's as flaky as they are. No way am I writing the season off. However, Rule looks like he's putting things in place for this season and next season, and goodness knows we could do with some long-term thinking.
Billy, I just always had you down as a Supertramp fan, and take the long way home with your answers. So
I am very. Not a soft rock guy at all. Very much alternate. That is like, you've besmirched my name there, Billy. I'm going on mute now. Sorry, Frankie, please.
I think that was a good.
The thing about Dan, he's said it's about 3 points and up the road. The fancy stuff can come later, and I take it for the more attractive football. That's next season. I think it's all about the 3 points up the road at the moment. We would all like to see, like myself included, would love to see us gob Livy, but see if it's 1-0, I'm all right with that. You know what I mean? It's 3 points in the bag at the moment. That's because winning becomes a habit, as we know. Because unfortunately, that lot along the road, even though when they've had poor teams, they know how to win. You know what I mean? And that winning as a habit, as each and every one of us knows, everyone reading this knows. But it'd be good as well to have another game to nil as well. You know, the other team not scoring. That's a, you know. And let me see, we're talking about the set piece guard. Sorry to go back. As we've said, it'll be good to see what he does at the back line as well for set pieces. You know.
Well, guys, we'll kind of wrap things up. We're going 50 odd minutes now. Just got a little story to say, and I don't know if you guys kind of relate to this, but maybe when you're out and about and you at your work or whatever, you see maybe someone's got a Rangers, maybe a tattoo or something Rangers related. You can maybe bring up that. Oh, have you listened to a podcast? Well, yesterday one of my customers, George, I noticed that he had in his house a lovely drawing of Walter Smith holding the SPL trophy. So I plucked up the courage to tell George about the pod, and he said he might listen in. So, George, if you are listening, welcome to the pod, and thanks for watching, mate. And I'll talk to you next month. Jack, can I come to you lastly? Did I miss anything out for this week's news?
No, not really. It's one of these things. We're starting to get a sort of silly season with the transfer links. Couple of boys for Kazakhstan link, but I think we'll focus more on that over the next few weeks when we actually start. Very tenuous
for me, Jack.
Yeah,
linked with Celtic as well and Dundee United. So,
but just be prepared. I seen this morning Ryan Kent's contract in America has not been extended, so be prepared for the next 6 weeks of links for Ryan Kent coming back to Ibrox.
Fair enough. Billy, I'm sorry I besmirched you. Please come back and say goodbye, though.
I will say goodbye, and also just you're totally forgiven, but like your music's a big thing. Supertramp are fine, but not for me. I think it's a pity that we don't really talk about that lot too much, but it's definitely entering pantomime season. If you've seen how their AGM went today, with the board starring in, presumably starring in Peter Pan, if what I've heard is anything to go by. It's really funny, and I really hope Danny Rowe can put a bit of pressure on them because they're coming apart at the seams in many ways.
Frankie,
and
thank
that's
you
the
very
annoying
much.
Thing. That's it. Don't forget to mention your sponsor, the Bluebells Bar, and where is it? In in Lanzarote.
I know. I'm bad for that, and I mention it every time, but because I don't really know how to approach it. So, guys, if you're over in Lanzarote, Puerto del Carmen, the Bluebells pub will look after you. Mention the Rangers Journal. It's good food, good times, and I think what else does Andrew say? A good laugh, and all the Rangers games are shown. They even show this podcast when it's convenient for them as well. So, yeah, the Bluebells pub, Puerto del Carmen. Sorry, Frankie. Thank you very much for that. I was going to say, yeah, you've got a massive following over there on Facebook, but please tell people where they can hear more of you.
There, Twitter and Facebook. See if you go on, I've got a link tree on my Facebook page. It's on there. I can't remember because unfortunately they're all different. They're not all one at Rangers Frankie or whatever it is. I don't know, man. The thing is, I don't shout about it too much, you know what I mean? I just let it do it authentically. I'm just waiting that thing coming through from AdSense at Google, and then I will be pushing forward. I'm sure you know what I mean, but that means I'm fully monetized on YouTube. It's Rangers now, and just come and say hello. Like I jump between 50 and 200 followers a day. I'm almost at 50,817, and you know what that number is?
Yeah, well, thank you very much,
Ibrox. So when I get when I get to that, that'll be woof.
You'll have to stop at that point.
Thanks for everybody.
I think we've extended Ibrox, so it might be all right.
Fair enough.
No, that is a new extension. That is a new extension.
Well, guys, thank you very much.
I'm all over that one.
Thank you very much for your comments as well, and thank you for watching. And we've got coverage over the weekend of the game at Ibrox, so join us for that. And I just thank you for watching. Every night is the Rangers Journal night. Goodbye.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.